What is going on, Sabres fans, and welcome to another episode of the Sabres Spotlight podcast, where we shine a light on all things Sabres hockey. Ryan, what's going on?
What's up, man? I don't know if it's like the times, how every so often we are just going through like crazy life event or historical event like every few days, but I feel like I haven't talked to you in ages.
Yeah, we really haven't. Usually we're just like sun up to sun down, just like messaging all day, but
That
not
hasn't really
lately. But
happened.
yeah, it's been busy for sure. We had Owen's birthday, so that was a big thing. So shout out to my son for turning one and just being
Yeah,
an
shout out to
absolute
my godson.
absolute
Love him.
baller that he is.
What a great
But
party you guys put on. It was nice.
Yeah, and it's been pretty silent in the world of the Sabres as well. Today, I know we teased this a little bit at the end of last week's episode, but we're gonna just get into some more kind of league wide discussion. There's really no Sabres news. I think where we're kind of at with them is waiting to see RFA signings and what's going to happen with UPL and arbitration. That's coming a little bit closer. So do you think? I guess we can talk about that real quick. But do you think he's going to go to arbitration? Or do you think they'll end up signing him before? Like, what do you think they're going to end up doing there with UPL?
No, I mean we haven't even seen like usually um Elliot or any of the other insiders will post when the arbitration dates are, and I've seen none of that so far. So like they don't even like teams don't even know when arbitration dates are, and what comes along with that is the player ask and the team ask. So we'll see like if it goes a little further along here, we'll see what UPL's camp is asking for and what Adams and Co are offering, and I'm actually very interested to see that. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to settle on a contract anyway.
Yeah,
It would be stupid for either party to go to arbitration.
yeah. I was, and we talked about it last show a little bit, I think. And I was listening to Sabres Live and with Marty, and he brought up an interesting point. Um, he thinks they're just going to do a 1 year deal with
They
UPL.
could. I
Yeah,
wouldn't. I would. I mean, that would be probably the most beneficial for the Sabres
sure.
because
Yeah,
it keeps him as an RFA. So we do this whole thing again next year, and he UPL besides maybe like a season and a half of good hockey really hasn't proven a long term like run of play yet. So hey,
yeah.
they lock him into a 1 year deal and we do the same song and dance and push it down the road. I'm for that.
Yeah, that's definitely the most beneficial for the Sabres for sure. But yeah, so we'll talk about that. Kind of as things come. We're kind of in the middle of summer here in the dog days, but that's why we're gonna do this kind of around the league here. We got a fun exercise to kind of get into at the end, where we're gonna kind of go through some of the team's top sixes and see where we maybe kind of rank the Sabres, as that's kind of a trending thing now. Is Sabres maybe got better on those bottom two lines, but they haven't really bolstered that top six, which is a need that a lot of people kind of wanted, heading into this offseason and into next season. So we can kind of compare actually where do they stand compared to some of these other teams. But we'll start with free agency, offseason winners and losers. So as far as this goes, we can really, I mean, I have a list. I'm sure you have a list. For me, I kind of
I
put
do.
this together as more of like, obviously, who players brought in, who they lost, and maybe who they re-signed, and if there's any team friendly deals and things. But I'll let you go first. Anyone, and we can see if we have any crossover. But any team you want to talk about specifically, or any move this summer that kind of surprised you when it came through the line.
Well, I have three winners and three losers, but I honestly think we can't start this discussion without talking about Nashville.
Yeah, Nashville's
Nobody,
definitely the top of the list.
nobody. What the hell,
Holy
man?
shit!
They went all in. I love it because Nashville was like kind of a great city. I mean, their fans are incredible. When I just like seeing Nashville be good. Like I don't know why they're awesome, but man, they brought in
Dude, Nashville is like,
Stamkos.
imagine Buffalo, like Buffalo, like, is just a hard draw for people because it's like Buffalo is cold. Like, you
Yeah,
got the rap of like not much going on. Like, who doesn't want to go to Nashville? Like, come on, like
right.
that's such
And
a
it's
just a location and city advantage.
people from here. They go vacation there. Like they do the whole partying thing, and it's an electric atmosphere. But dude, they signed Stamkos. They signed Marchessault. They signed Brady Shea. Like, dude, they went out
And they
and
extended
kicked
Saros.
rocks. And they extended Saros when everyone thought they were going to get traded, or he was going to get traded, which is very interesting to see what they do with Askarov because he's been kind of cooking in the AHL for a little while, and maybe he comes up and he's Saros' backup, and they have a nice little 1-2 punch there. And man, Nashville's going to be hopefully good because that area is very fun. But we couldn't start off with a winner discussion and not talk about them first.
Yeah, I didn't necessarily rank mine in order, like on my like paper
Yeah,
here,
they were
but
actually
I
third on my list, but I didn't rank them either. But we
yeah,
had
but they were my first one because like when I thought of winners, like that's where my head went immediately, just because of everything they did. I mean, we all wanted Stamkos to come here in Buffalo. I mean, it's just like, and they already have so many good players. I mean, you add everyone they signed to Forsberg and Roman Yossi, like they have just a solid lineup. O'Reilly's still there, I believe, right? So it's like
I
they
believe so.
have, yeah. So they
I mean,
have
all
all
those
these.
the young players they got too. Like, dude, they were a fun team for me last year. Like, I was hoping they'd be good. So
Yeah,
this year it's going to be even more fun.
yeah. It's interesting because if you look at like last year, I remember the big goalie last year was Hellebuck. Everyone thought he was going to get traded, and then he ends up signing the big extension to stay in Winnipeg. And then again this year, everyone's like, oh, Saros is going to get dealt, and he signs the big extension. It's like you just wonder if like teams are willing to trade a lot of pieces and assets for these goalies, or if they're okay with just kind of doing like a committee approach, or finding a cheaper person or player there to plug in. It's just kind of, I don't know if that's a trend or if that's just kind of coincidence. But
I I feel like, dude, if you have one of like five goalies right now, you don't even entertain trading them. Like, I don't care if you're rebuilding or not. Just keep one of those guys. Like, if you got a
yeah,
Hellebuyck or a Saros or a Shesterkin, you keep them no matter what. So because Shesterkin's up next year, so I'm curious to see, what New York does with him. I'm assuming they'll sign him to a big extension. He's a little older, but so is Saros. So we'll
yeah,
see. But he got his bag, and Nashville is going for a cup.
yeah. And I don't think Swayman signed his extension yet, has he?
No, I don't know what's going on in Boston with him.
Yeah, that's a weird situation too. Obviously, they're going to get it done. They traded Allmark, and they know he's the guy. So we'll see what happens there. But they already made him go to arbitration once, and now they're just like, now this is just going on. Like, man, they're just really messing with him. But all right, I will go next here, and I'll be interested to see if you put them on on one of your winners. You have two less than I do. This pains me to say it, but I kind of think the Maple Leafs are a winner here,
Oh,
and
interesting. Do tell.
mainly just because their issue's not goal scoring. Like they have a ton of goal scoring talent, and the domino that still has to fall is Marner. Like, is he going to get traded or is he going to stay? So there's who knows if they're necessarily done, with things. But you sign Oliver Ekman Larson to a 4-year deal, and Chris Tanev, who was arguably probably the top defenseman, free agent signing out there, other than maybe perhaps Nikita Zadorov. But like you sign, one of the two big defensemen and Oliver Ekman Larson, and that's where they struggled last year was defensively and puck control and things. So it just seems like I kind of just like what they did. Nothing like super splashy, but I like the two defenseman signings they have. They obviously have limited cap space with some of their big contracts and their big their big players, but it seems like they did a good job. As much as I hate to say it, is kind of identifying the needs and going to get it.
Yeah, I
So
agree. They didn't hurt themselves. Like I think they're going to be the same team. Like they're going to probably either win, the first like a contend for the first spot in the East or
yeah,
in the Atlantic Division at least, and be a good playoff team. I don't know. I can't buy into the Leafs like at all. I still don't think their back end is great. I don't know, man. The Leafs are just like you kind of did the same thing for me. Yeah, you kind
well,
of just
because they
like
did lose Bertuzzi.
yeah. So it's like you lost some bite, but they did make some good moves. They're just kind of like you kind of have the same team a little bit for me.
Yeah, yeah. I like Tanev a lot, and so and I
Yeah.
think Oliver Ekman Larson is solid too. So if
It
they
would be
can,
so Leafs for Tanev to be such a monster in the playoffs for Dallas and then go to the Leafs and just his everything falls apart.
I was kind of surprised with his contract because it wasn't like as big as I thought it was going to be. Like it was, I think it was only like I'm gonna look it up on Puckpedia right now, but it wasn't like a.
He's a
I bet
little
what.
older. I think he's 34 years old. So that would kind of put into perspective why. I don't remember what he got.
Yeah, he's 34, but I mean, he got a 6-year deal. It's
That's fucking
four point
crazy.
five. Yeah, 4.5 a year, 27 million. So four and a
Okay.
half mil a year.
So
I
I,
guess for a
I, I
34-year-old,
assume they'll
that's
be
not bad,
like,
but
I assume what they're doing there is they're going to be like, all right, you play out 4 years, and then if it all falls apart in your 38, 39 year, we'll just buy you out because we're the Leafs and we can afford to. Like, they
yeah,
can buy out anyone. Like, they have infinite money. So it's fine.
yeah, that is crazy. That is crazy, but
Goddamn 6 years. That's fucking good for him. Good for Chris Tanev. He earned it.
yeah, yeah, and he's got some sweet flow. So all right, I'll let you go next.
So my second winner, let's see. Oh my god, I just like lost it. So my second winner is going to be the Devils, dude. So the Devils, man, a couple weeks prior to free agency, they traded for Jacob Markstrom, and then they added Brennan Dillon, they added Brett Pesce, and they added Stefan Noesen, who is like a fourth line like banger, dude. They really did Lindy hard. Like,
Oh man, it's all part
it's
of God's plan to get him to
like
Buffalo.
these are like, I feel like the Devils are in a situation similar to the Sabres where their fans are probably saying like, why didn't we do this stuff last year? Like, I get last year they brought in San Jose. Oh my god, the winger. I can't remember his name. Fuck, he's
Oh,
a big deal. Anyway,
who are you talking about?
who did they trade for last year?
Who?
Big winger, big ass guy. I'm looking it up while I talk.
Yeah, but what team? Oh, the Devils.
Devils. So anyway, that was really bad podcasting. But dude, I like what the
Oh,
Devils
what was his
did.
name?
I know I can't think of it because he was a Sabre target too for me. But dude, they redefined their D. They have Dougie Hamilton coming back, which it's so funny because like that's kind of like a new signing for me. He missed most of last year, and when you add all those guys on D and then you bring back all the like most of the same forwards and get a healthy Jack Hughes,
Yeah,
the Devils are going to be good. And I feel bad for Lindy Ruff. And they brought in
yeah,
Sheldon Keefe. Like, let's talk about the coaching too. Like, bringing in Keefe is another like key offseason addition for them.
yeah, and it was Timo Meyer. That's
Timo Meyer.
that's who it was.
Thank you.
Oh my
Thank you. Yeah.
gosh, yeah.
Thank you.
Can't believe we couldn't
Couldn't,
put that together.
I know. Couldn't think of poor Timo. Sorry, bud.
Yeah, they're. I mean, they have a solid top six. I mean, and they have Hughes. The goaltending was an issue. Last season, Markstrom obviously wants to be there. So again, I think another team that just kind of identified some of their needs and went out and got it. And when you have a player like Jack Hughes, probably not too hard to convince people to come over as well. But yeah, Sheldon Keefe, I'll be interested to see what he does there because I don't know how I feel about him like as a coach. I
Right.
kind of feel like he was just stuck like in Toronto, and it didn't seem like the players really didn't like him. I just think that their roster construction just wasn't built to get past where they needed to go, and they did the same thing a few years in a row. So it'll I don't know we'll see how they do this year, but it sucks when we're sitting here talking about the Devils getting better and maybe the Maple Leafs like still being there. And it's like, man, it's like Buffalo. They got a little bit better. We think they're going to be okay, but it's like all these teams made some more moves. But
Right.
all right,
Give me
well,
your second winner.
all right. This isn't like a winner as far as like they're going to be good next year because they're not going to be. But I think San Jose is a big winner
Okay.
from this offseason. And mainly because not I mean you get Mac and Celebrini, obviously you won the draft lottery, so you get like a nice stud future first line center there, but you also signed Will Smith, which was their draft pick from last year, who's probably going to be, I would imagine, their second line center for next season because he's signed with them. And maybe him and Celebrini will be playing together, in the future. Who knows? But you can kind of separate them now to spread things out. But then aside from that, you bring in like they brought in some decent players, like not like guys that are gonna like knock your socks off, but like veteran players who can make someone different. I mean, they signed Toffoli, Carl Grunstrom, Drake Wallman, Barkley Goodrow. These aren't guys that are like amazing, but they're guys that can kind of come in and like and be better now. So your goals above replacement, I'm sure, is gonna be way up. Just as a matter of kind of going through the process of rebuilding and getting better. But then, to sign a Mac and Celebrini, obviously that was going to happen. But you get him and Will Smith. I kind of like what they did after we dogged on um, Greer for sending us that second round pick for like basically nothing. I think you did a pretty good job this offseason. So
I agree. And like Jake Wallman, that trade, getting him out of Detroit, he kind of goes in and is instantly like their best defenseman. He's
yeah,
not a
which is
best player
crazy.
by any means. Like not like he shouldn't be your best defenseman on like a team you're trying to compete with. But a team like that, that's just perfectly fine. So
Yeah.
good moves by Mike Greer. I like to see every former Sabres, like the person that's associated with them, do well, except for Chris Drury. So that's good. I'm happy for them.
They'll definitely be better. They'll definitely be better
I
this year.
mean, it couldn't possibly be worse. Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
it couldn't be worse. But all right, I'll let you go next. You got one more?
Yeah, I got one more. So, as much as it pained you to say that
I gotta know. I think I know who this is.
You thought the Leafs were losers, I'm gonna give a big winner to the Boston Bruins.
Yeah, they're on my
They
list
brought
too.
in Nikita Zadorov, who was courted by many teams. They brought in Elias Lindholm. Dude,
And Lindholm's been kind of but he had a good playoffs.
he had a good playoff. Yeah, if
Yeah,
they can get playoff Lindholm, then that team, and it's Boston, dude. I don't understand. Like their team on paper can be like the middest team, but for some reason they're just good all the
yeah,
time. And they have
yeah,
Swayman, they'll get him signed. They Matthew Poitras, the promising rookie that they had from last year, is coming back from injury. I think Boston's going to be good again, and I don't like that. And it's largely on the back of getting those two pieces because they needed a D, and they needed I assume they're going to play Lindholm at center, and they kind of need one because Charlie Coyle cannot be your number one center.
yeah, yeah. They made it work. I mean, they made it work. So and they always do. So it's part of the system, and you're gonna have Swayman in net. So yeah, again, they were on my list. I hated putting them on my list. I have only one more here, and
Okay,
uh,
let it
and
rip.
it's Florida. And it's Florida. It's the Panthers. I know they lost some pieces, but you kept a lot of your core together. You end up signing that dollar friendly deal to Sam Reinhart, 7 years, 69 million, and you re-sign Anton Lundell. So it just seems like they kind of again you had some players leave Ekman Larson and whatnot, and they had to do that with the cap position that they were in. You knew that was going to happen, but to get the deal done with Reinhardt and again sign Lundell, who was good for him. They got Kulikov done with the extension, so I just think they're going to continue to be a dominant force in the Atlantic.
Yeah, the
You still
Florida
got
Panthers are
Kachuk
here.
there. I mean, you lose Montour, but like no big deal there. I mean, he was a good player, but he kind of slowed down a little bit towards the end of the playoffs. There, he didn't really have a good playoffs, last year. So
I agree with Florida, and going to Montour is a perfect transition to my first loser of the offseason, and that's the Seattle Kraken. Dude, what were Seattle doing this year? They gave Montour an absolute bag, who, besides last year in Florida, like you said, last year was okay. The year before that, he was an unbelievable player. But every other year of his career, he's kind of just, a good number four, like puck mover, like just a good player, not a great player. But they paid him like he's an elite player.
hmm
And then they go out and give Chandler Stevenson
oh yeah, they got a
a
bag.
huge bag, and it's like, dude, why? What? Why would you pay a player like him who pretty much fell off? Like his whole, like he can't play. Like I don't think Chandler Stevenson can play. I could be wrong. I know he put up points last year, but he was an absolute disaster.
I
Like
mean,
and every other part of the game for the Vegas Golden Knights last year. So I have Seattle as my big loser. Besides one team that I can't wait to talk about because it's hilarious. But Seattle is my big loser, as the Impractical Jokers like to say.
I did not. I have four losers down essentially, and um, but I could definitely add Seattle on the list. It's so weird with Seattle because I feel like I kind of forget that they exist. It's like a weird thing with them. Like they they obviously were like hot out of the gate when they like were like first established, and made the playoffs a couple years ago, and didn't they beat Colorado? Right? Didn't they beat
Yeah,
Colorado?
they
Like they
won a
took
round.
out like
Yep.
Colorado and beat the champs, and then there was just so much like steam there, and then they just fell off, and then just being on the West, like they're I don't know, they're a team I just kind of like forget about. I feel like they had sweet jerseys, and
Yep.
now I'm just kind of riding that like Utah HC train, and like that's the new thing for me.
Yeah, Seattle just is forgettable to me as
Yeah,
well.
yeah, it's just it's bizarre, like I just kind of forget they're in the league a little bit, but yeah, I agree with you there. My biggest loser, which and I love saying this is going to come as no surprise to everybody, but it's the Vegas Golden Knights. They lost a ton. They were in cap hell, but you lose Marchessault, Logan Thompson, Mantha, Stevenson, Michael Mayo, Alec Martinez, and you bring in really nobody. I mean, they signed Olofsson to a 1 year deal. You signed Alexander Holtz, but like, I mean, they still have good pieces. But as far as like, the in out, it was going to happen because they needed to make their cap fit and whatnot, and maybe they'll make some crazy move during the season to make things good again. But they had a lot of talent leave, and we'll see how they do next year. But
It'll be quite interesting because Petrangelo is getting up there in age. They brought in Hurdle last year, remember at the trade deadline, and it kind of
mm-hmm.
like
Yeah, from San Jose.
I'm sure like he was coming back from injury, so it was a little difficult for him, but he kind of like looked like he didn't belong like in that lineup, like it just wasn't working, and then they extended
Yeah.
him to it, and it's like okay, you kind of extended this guy before you even see how he plays in your lineup, and you only had like a 20 game sample, so it's a little weird, but.
Yeah, he didn't look healthy to me. Like that, I'm sure that's what it was, but
And he was also playing wing, like he's a natural center. I'm sure he'll play. I'm sure he'll be their number two center now behind Eichel. But if you go and look at their forward group, like it's not like the best. Like let me go on Daily Faceoff real quick because I was checking it out prior to here because I was like reevaluating like where I put the Sabres,
mm-hmm.
and it just is not. It's not anything to write home about, in my opinion. Like their top line, you're gonna run potentially like this is just from Daily Faceoff. It's whatever, but you got Barbashev with Eichel and Olofsson. Can Olofsson play on a top line?
I
The guy
know.
couldn't
Yeah,
even crack a second
Olafson on
line open.
line one,
And
making $1
then
million on the top line.
then you're running with Pavel Dorofiev, who's pretty much done nothing of note in the NHL. Hurdle, who we said was injured and kind of didn't fit, and then Mark Stone, who's
Yeah,
probably going to have another back injury because the guy's back is just hanging on by a thread. And then on the bottom lines, you got Brendan Brisson, promising young player, Carlson and Alexander Holtz, who was in Lindy's doghouse the entire season in New Jersey. So like their top nine is not great. It's going to be their defense again and their goaltending that's going to really like push them ahead, and they're going to be probably a decent team again. But I think
yeah,
that forward group is holding them back.
yeah. I mean, the defensive pieces are great between Hannafin, Theodore, McNabb. Like they have some good defensive pieces, um, and then I mean they have Aiden Hill and they signed Samsonov as well. Who I'm like I don't know. I know Samsonov's been up and down, but like he has some games. Like
When he's
he
on, he's on.
yeah, when he's on exactly. So yeah, they'll be interesting. That's for sure. I did not have them as one of my teams that has a better top six than the Sabres. So that's
Okay.
just kind of puts it in perspective. And I think the Sabres have a decent top six, but like I don't think that their top six is better than the Sabres. Like I'd take ours like over them right now. So that's just to kind of parlay off of what you were saying there about kind of like that those top couple lines not being as heavy. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what they do. They could be more of a potentially more of a bubble team this year as far as like the playoffs go. But
That would be nice to
my
watch.
that would be nice. Okay, so Europe.
Okay, so I'm excited to talk about this team because we have absolutely nothing to talk about. The Montreal Canadiens made zero moves.
Nothing. Yeah,
Nothing.
nothing.
Zero moves this offseason. Why? What's happening there? Like
They just extended Slav. Like he
that's
gave him
that's
like an
it.
8 year deal, but yeah,
Like Slavkovsky gets this big deal, but they didn't make a single like incoming move. I genuinely don't understand what's going on in Montreal. Like, it's not making any sense to me. You think they would like they're rebuilding, obviously, but like try to
Yeah,
surround your Suzuki's and your Slavkovskis with a better player. They've got about $9 million-ish in cap space and 20 man like a
yeah,
20-man
yeah.
roster,
Nine
but it's
plus.
always upgradable. You could have brought in somebody to upgrade it, and they did literally nothing. So there's really nothing to say about what they
Yeah,
did because they didn't do a damn thing.
yeah, and they don't have like again they don't have a ton of depth either. So unless they're looking at again, obviously they're in a rebuild, so just let's see what some of these young pieces can do, and then kind of use that cap space to kind of guide the future direction. That's the only thing I can think that makes sense is that they're not expecting to be competitive, this year. And Caulfield took big steps last year. He had a good year, and you have him and Suzuki, up top. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting because like they literally did nothing, just
Right.
no moves were made, and that's fine with me, I guess. That's fine with me. I think their fans are still thinking that they're getting Devin Levi. You remember all that nonsense?
Oh, it was insane. It's just because the French media is just absurd when it comes to French-born players. They are crazy though. It's just so funny. But no, that team is so odd to me. Like, how do you go through a whole offseason and do nothing?
Yeah, Montreal was. Yeah, they were just not relevant at all. My second biggest loser, it's got to be the Carolina Hurricanes. Between losing Jake Gensel, you lose Stefan Nosen, Toivo Teravainen, Brett Pesce, and
Yep,
Brady Shea. Just lots of talent coming out, and perhaps the biggest thing here was they broke their trend last year with the Gensel deal.
yep.
They went all in, something they usually don't do. They traded some pieces. They made the big deal at the trade deadline. It didn't work out, and then they couldn't even retain him. And then you lose all these pieces on top of it. So I'm a little confused with Carolina right now. They re-signed Jacob Slavin, but other than that, they haven't really done anything else. So I don't know where they're I don't know what the plan is there. They're just gonna run it back with some lower pieces. I don't know. What are your thoughts on the Hurricanes?
I had them as a loser as well. That was my third team as a loser.
Yeah, yeah. It's
They
just
didn't
kind
do
of
it. They
didn't do
didn't.
anything.
Yeah, they like you think that like Eric Tulsky comes in as your new GM and you want to make a big splash. Like, I losing Gensel really sucks for them. Like,
Yeah,
that that's like your big ticket item. You paid a price for him at the deadline and plays pretty well in the playoffs, and then he's gone. And it's like, did,
and I think Teravainen had 20, 20, 20
yeah,
plus
he's
goals
a
for
good
them
little
last
player.
year.
And dude, so we didn't even
Had
discuss.
25 goals last year.
There's excuse me, there's always the chance that Marty Necas like gets traded out of there. Like, by all
Yeah,
accounts,
exactly.
he wants out. So that's another like score that on a team that already kind of struggles to score goals. That's another guy that provides
Right.
offense that doesn't want to be there.
Yeah. Yeah. So just kind of interesting. Do you have any other losers or no?
I don't, but I can look at the one team that I was actually just checking out while you were talking, dude. The LA Kings, another team that I think is a big loser. They just signed Quentin Byfield to his deal, like a couple years ago to his deal. Maybe it was this year, last year, don't remember.
No,
He's
Byfield just signed
just
like a
signed.
week
I
ago.
thought he just signed. I thought he
Yeah,
just
he
okay.
just he just signed like a week.
With everything going on in the world today, my brain, I can't comprehend when things happen. It's fucking
Actually,
crazy.
I want to talk about that a little bit later because there's a lot of talks about that deal and potentially like JJ and Quinn extensions, in the
Yeah,
future. So we
I
can we
like
can
the
come back to that in a little bit.
I like the Byfield move, but they let
I got
Victor
a 5 year
Arvidsson
deal.
walk. They let Matt Roy walk. They gave Joel Edmondson a massive deal, and Joel Edmondson, while a good defensive player, like isn't the best. I would say like he's more of a third pair player. And they gave Warren Fogle a multi-year contract, and I'm like, that's good, but you're another team that you kind of need to push to be good, especially in that LA market where like you're kind of competing for things to do in that city. And they love their LA Kings.
Yeah,
Like,
they
don't
got to
get me
get
wrong,
past
but
Edmonton.
If they still sit and they're gonna lose in round one, then like what's the point?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They keep getting smashed by Edmonton in round one. It's like you gotta do. It's like they're like the Chiefs for the Bills. Really,
They
they
really
just
are.
can't get over that hump. Yeah, but no, I'm with you, man. I think the only reason I didn't put them as like a loser for me is because they did get rid of PLD, and I think that's a big addition by subtraction. So.
I agree, but it's also that puts me like them in like a positive and a negative light because it's like, yes, you got rid of this deal, but you gave up so much for him originally that like those
Yeah,
losses are bleeding into like now.
yeah, and
They
then
had
but then I don't like the New Jerseys either, really. So that's kind of a loss for me. Although I think you're high on the New Jerseys.
I like them. I think they're cool. I like them a lot. I like that teams are going back to like classic 80s and 90s logos because
Oh, Anaheim jerseys are fire.
oh, dude, they're so fire. We need more teams. Actually, we can't say we need more teams because teams are really doing it a lot, but whoever was designing logos specifically in like the 80s and 90s was absolutely cooking. And whoever was designing logos, from 2005 on until kind of recently, sucks ass. Like the mid 2000s rebrand for teams was horrible.
Yeah,
And I'm just glad that teams are kind of like going back to their roots a little bit, and it really brings the nostalgia. I like it. Now we're just waiting on we got our goat heads. Sabres got our goat heads.
yep, yep,
Waiting on
yep,
the Bills to go back to their '90s throwbacks. Which,
yep.
come on, let's go. I would shell out so much money for a '90s throwback. But teams more and more. Did you see on the topic of jerseys? The Jets are wearing their classic jerseys against us.
I saw that on Twitter today. Yeah,
Yeah. So I love this stuff.
yeah, yeah. That'll be interesting to see. Dude. I don't really like football jerseys all that much. I don't know
Okay.
why.
Why not expand?
I don't know. I don't know. They're just like I guess maybe it's just because like I feel like maybe not now with Fanatics, but I just feel like the quality of like a hockey jersey is just so solid. Like it just feels so like authentic. Like the Adidas jerseys, and then like I put like my Josh Allen jersey on, which I love, but it's just like it just kind of feels like a shirt,
Yeah.
just kind of like a plush shirt.
I feel like also when it comes to logos themselves that hockey is better than any sport. Like
Yeah,
you see a Montreal Canadiens logo, you're like, that is a historic logo. When
yeah,
you see like a Patriots logo, you're like, it's okay, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Eh.
exactly.
When you see a Chicago Blackhawks logo, you're like, that's a historic logo. When you see a Bears logo, you're like, it's a C. It's okay.
No, the
So
worst is the Browns. Oh my
it's a
god, the Cleveland
it's a
Browns.
it's a brown helmet. Like it's a brown like that's great. Like okay. Good idea.
It's so
Great
bad.
ideas
It's
there.
so bad. All right, we're going off on a jersey tangent here. While we're here, I have one more thing to say though. Best jerseys by far. Shout out to our Rochester Amherst because
Oh,
they got
beautiful
some
jerseys.
beautiful,
Beautiful.
beautiful jerseys. So yeah,
Beautiful. I'm
we'll shout out
partial to
the
the white
Amherst.
one. Partial to the white one. The white
Dude,
one's gorgeous.
I like the blue. I like the blue, but they're all so good. They're all so nice.
Again, you look at an Amex logo, that's a classic AHL logo.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Oh, and like the WHL, like oh my god, WHL has some sweet logos too. So yeah,
Yep.
yeah, okay. All right, I had another loser here as the Detroit Red Wings,
Always going to
and
be a loser in my book. You don't even have to say anything else.
yeah, they're just an internal loser. But I mean, they signed Kane and Tarasenko, but you say goodbye to Wallman for again that move was so weird. You basically dumped him for nothing. David Perron and Gostisbehere, and Gostisbehere was like Kane's boy, So it's just kind of interesting, like what they did, as and add that to the fact that they have like six goalies right now. It's it's just really bizarre, and I think Eiserman's starting to get a little bit of heat over in
Yes, he
the
is.
Motor City there, so it'll be interesting. All right, that's all you got.
I agree. Just want to compound on your Detroit stuff because
Yeah, go ahead.
I was lurking in their fan space a little bit, like over the last week or so, because I'm curious to see how other fans talk about their team. Dude, they are so pissed. They are not happy. Like they're gonna run Kane and Tarasenko on a line together, and that is one old ass line.
Yeah,
and JT Comfort as their second line center, like you said, they're like okay. If they finish above us this year, I am considering jumping off the Peace Bridge.
It's so their team build is so weird. It's so weird, and they haven't signed Lucas Raymond yet. I think he's going to get a bag from them too. I mean, he's a good player. I like Raymond a lot, but again, that's like another thing that like the fans want that done. Like they want to get that sense. That's like when we were yelling for Darlene, and it's like you got all this other stuff going on, and then like your talented young prospect that like had a breakout year last year, like he's still unsigned, and I'm sure they're going to get it done. But it's just like I can understand that fan base being in some upheaval right now.
Yeah,
That's for sure.
they are like they're just like the Iser plan is terrible. Like what's going on? Like we deserve better. All this stuff. Which
Yeah,
their classic logo, if you want to go into that, but and people always say I disagree with this statement because I can't stand that organization. But people always say that the NHL is better when the Red Wings are good. I disagree. They can wallow in misery for the rest of their entire existence, for all I care.
yeah, yeah. Who cares? I don't know. That's an interesting question to pose. Like, what teams do I like realistically want to see do good for like to feel like the NHL is like in a good place? I feel like there's not many. Everyone just loves their home team. I don't
I feel
know
like
if
I feel like it's the Rangers, the Canadians probably, like the big teams. Like if the
yeah,
Rangers are good and the Canadians are good and like out west, let's say LA because it's a big market is good,
yeah,
then the NHL is in a good spot.
yeah. Like for them, yeah.
Yeah.
Like I'd love to see the Ducks be good. Like
They were
again,
fun.
like
They were really when they were really good in like the mid 2000s when they won their cup. That was a fun ass team. Like they were just
yeah.
beating they would beat your ass and then they'd score on you. It was a fun time with them.
Yeah, they got some. I mean, they got some young talent there. Cutter Gauthier is there now. You got obviously Zegras, and then
Future Saber.
yeah, that'd be interesting. They got Leo Carlson, who they drafted last year, and then they grabbed my boy Beckett Seneca this year with the surprise pick of the draft, which I don't know if he's gonna play this year. He's probably playing in college, but
Did we even talk about the draft at all? Like did we talk about Beckett Seneca's reaction to being picked?
no, we
All
did it.
time all time reaction. So he gets picked third overall, just gets up and looks at his dad and he's like, "Holy fuck."
Yeah, so great. So was he the kid whose parents were like making out?
No, no, that was so that was a couple years ago. I forget
Oh,
the
that's a
player's
couple years
name.
ago.
A couple years ago, I think it was a Coyotes draft pick, first round pick, late 20s. It was a defenseman, I know that. He gets picked and his parents are just so happy. They just start tongue fighting on camera.
And even the announcer's like, "Oh, it's a funny video. That's a funny video." But all right, cool. So then we'll get into our little top six exercise here. I think this is fun. I'll be interested to see kind of where we land on this. But I think before we do that, real quick, I want to go back to that Byfield signing real fast because
Okay.
there was some chatter about him this year getting offer sheeted and if he was going to move and whatnot, and if the Sabres should attempt for that or not. And I don't think nothing happened there because he ends up signing the extension. But 5 years, 31.2 million, AAV of 6.2. Feel like that's a pretty fair number for both sides. As far as Byfield concerns, kind of broke out last season, had a really really strong start to the year, and then kind of cooled off down the stretch a little bit, but they're looking for him to be a young, play driving, forward for them. And he showed some of that promise last year. Good speed, good passing, and showed some of the finishing last year as well with some of the scoring. So, do you think that's like? Where do you think that is? I know we've kind of talked about, I think we're both kind of on the same side as far as like Quinn probably getting a bridge deal and JJ maybe getting like a more of a longer term kind of core deal. Is that kind of still what you think? And what do you think about this number for either of them? Probably more relatable to JJ.
I think if we locked up JJ to that exact contract, I think I'd be fine with it.
Yeah,
It's kind of right around where I want. Like I would, of course, we all want to lock him up to an 8-year contract. Like yes, like that's like the number one goal. But if it doesn't really happen, this is a great deal for him, and it would help him to cash in sooner as well afterwards.
Yeah.
So I'd be all for it. We're gonna have to make money moves like eventually. Like we gotta put like we already paid most of our guys. We gotta pay him, and this would be a start to that. And hopefully, like he outperforms like they're expecting Byfield to outperform that deal. I think a little bit, and I think we would expect JJ to outperform that deal a little bit because I'm really high on JJ Peterka.
Yeah, I was just looking at. I agree with that analysis. I was just looking at their numbers from last season, and that's why they're drawing the comparables. They're Byfield's 21, JJ's 22, and last season Byfield 20 goals, 35 assists, so 55 points, and JJ 28 goals, 22 assists, 50 points. So just similar age, similar in their trajectory as far as like entering the league and having some experience now, and then needing that new deal as well as similar point totals. So I think that's a decent. You feel like that's going to be somewhat of a starting point for the Sabres and JJ as they look to things. I don't know if we'll. I don't expect that to get done this year. That'll probably be done maybe into the season or next year because I think he's got 1 year left, right? And then he'll be RFA after this season, right? Him
Yes.
and
Yes.
him and Quinn,
Yep.
I think. Yeah, yeah,
Yep. Both of them.
yeah. And Quinn would be on the lower end of that. So yeah, okay, all right, cool. Yeah, I think we're kind of on board with that. But all right, so then let's get into the top six here. What? How do you want to work this? What are you thinking?
So I want to just tell you off the bat that when I did this exercise a couple weeks ago, I didn't write the teams down around them, and I'm an idiot for not doing so. But I had the Sabres as the 13th best. Like we're going to talk about their top six forwards only. So
Right.
I'm also curious about how you project our top six because in my head I have it as Paterka, Thompson, Tuck, Zucker, Cousins, Quinn,
Yeah.
and I had them at 13th because I think they're not quite bad enough to be exact middle of the packets at like 16, but I think they're a little bit above average and kind of fall in line and could push to be top 10 if I'm being honest, if they find their form again.
Yeah. So I I have my list here. You said you have them at 13th.
Yep.
Yeah, I have them at 14th. So we're kind of in the same area there.
I'm
And
curious who you have around them because I did write it down initially and then I forgot where I put it and I literally can't find it. But I want to hear who you have around them.
so my teams like that I have around them as far as like tiers go is Winnipeg, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Vancouver, and the Kings. Those are kind of like the teams that I have kind of like on their similar tier, obviously ahead of them. I kind of have I'd say my top tier is Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton, Florida, and then after that Boston, Nashville, New Jersey, New York Rangers. So I kind of have like if I had to tier it out, just looking at it real quick, I didn't necessarily do it like this, but just looking at it real quick, that's probably how I do. Top four, middle section there, and then around the Sabres, Winnipeg, Detroit, Tampa Bay, Vancouver. Detroit and Tampa Bay were kind of the two teams that I was questioning. I felt kind of good with the rest of the teams there being above them as far as like yeah, I'd probably rather have this top six. And then I just kind of had to put Detroit and Tampa Bay above them. Tampa Bay more so just because you got Kucherov, you got Hedman, you got
Yeah,
points.
point.
They have some studs there. So and then yeah, so that's kind of where I fell with them.
Yeah, like I memed on Detroit, but I think we're right. I think when I did the exercise myself, I had Detroit at 14. So it's like they're kind of similar because Dylan Larkin's an incredible player. Kane scored a bunch of points last year. Tarasenko can find his form, and we got a lot of question marks. Like I can Jason Zucker find his form on the second line, and if it's not him, it's going to be like Zach Benson or someone. Like there's no one
Yeah,
else. It's either
yeah,
one of those two, and we're kind of banking on a lot. Like we're banking on Paterka being like, this is JJ Paterka. And while I'm confident in that, it's also scary. We're also banking on Jack Quinn being healthy, and we're also banking on Tage Thompson and Alex Tuck being healthy. But the potential of them finally being healthy together on the ice at the same time is explosive.
Yeah.
In my opinion, like that's a good on paper forward group in the top, like for your scorers.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that sixth spot is the one that's up for grabs. Like you said, you have Zucker kind of penciled in there right now. I think that's fine. It'd be probably him or Benson, maybe. That's going to get into that spot. I don't know if you have any other thoughts about who would sneak in there, but I'm
This
also
also,
wondering if. Go ahead.
I would say it also opens up another discussion because the Sabres, at the end of the day, when they do sign their RFAs, they're going to have about $6 to $7 million in cap space. So
Right.
who's to say that they don't go out and make another trade for a forward, which I would prefer because I want them to spend that money because I think it's utterly bullshit for this team to be spending in the 26 20 to 27 range in salary again. And I get that they're young. They're a young team with not a lot of high cap hits, but it's completely unacceptable for a team that's trying to make the playoffs to be so low in salary spending. So I'm kind of
Yeah.
hoping that they go out and make another move for another scorer because they desperately need it.
Yeah. Yeah. So as far as like, and to show the importance of that is like, if you look at just the Atlantic Division, like I ranked all these teams above them. To put it in perspective, there's six teams that I ranked ahead of them from the East,
Yeah,
total. And in the Atlantic Division, there's only two teams or three teams from our division that I have above them as far as top six. And like I said, I was kind of on the fence about even Tampa Bay a little bit, but I had to put them in, a little bit. So as far as like the Atlantic Division goes, then I they're right there on par with some of these teams. Well, I guess it'd be four because Boston, Florida, Detroit, and Tampa Bay. So I technically have four above them. But going back to your point there, they're so close to those two teams, if you are able to make that one move to get that top six guy, I mean, you jump up this list, and you
yep.
can become, you can put yourself in discussion for one of those top tier or top three, top six forwards group, in your division, which is where you have to win ultimately. You get the top three in your division. That's a guaranteed playoff spot. You don't have to worry about wild card. You don't even have to worry about the Metro. So they're right there with these teams, and I think that's why there's a lot of urgency and a lot of frustration because as much as they did, bolster the back end, it kind of feels like right now they're a better team, but how much better are they? If it's only marginal, it's not going to be enough to get him there. I'd really like to see that move made, and I hope Adams can do it because, I mean, going through something like this, it shows okay, you're kind of on par with these teams. If you want to take that next step, you got to go do it. You have to go, hopefully make that move, and we'll see if they do. We'll see if they do, but it's an interesting way to look through it because when you look at it like this, you see these teams aren't just stacked with top nine guys.
Yep,
Like a lot of teams,
I
they're
agree.
just built that way. They're just built that way, and the Sabres are young and are going to be that way in a couple years. But the time is now, like they've said, so you got to go do it.
Yeah, like who's to say if who's to say the Sabres aren't the team that goes and gets Marty Natchez? Like I doubt it. I low key like don't want a Marty Natchez because he's kind of like Jeff Skinner light in where he'll provide a lot of offense but really no defense.
Yeah.
The guy that I want to target and it's kind of like goes against what I just said about Natchez is Trevor Zegras. I think Trevor Zegras, if he finally gets a chance, I don't think he's a center and he's playing center in Anaheim. If you put Zegras on our team, it is going to
Oh
be
my
so
god.
it's going to be so flashy. He's going to come in, do power play stuff. He is a wizard with the puck. Imagine him like handling the puck and then getting it to like a scorer like Jack Quinn.
Yeah.
That's so exciting to me. If you stuck him on a line with Cousins, specifically with Cousins, who has tried to be the puck carrier before, and I don't want Cousins to be my main puck carrier. I don't think that's his game. If you let Trevor Zegras be the main puck carrier on that line and start dishing to these guys, that could be some magic.
Oh yeah, definitely. That would be insane. What do you think about like I'll throw this name out there. What do you think about as far as a trade target goes, like a Matty Beniers?
Never gonna happen.
I know, because Seattle's gonna lock him up, but like if you make a good enough splash, I mean, he's
If he
got the
has another,
connection with power, right?
yeah, if he has another absolute, like he was pretty brutal this year, but that might just be a Seattle thing. And they did pick
Yeah,
him second overall, so I don't think if they, I guess I would love him. Obviously, I think he's going to be awesome.
yeah,
But if LA didn't give up on Quentin Byfield after his first couple of years in the league, that were pretty disappointing, and he finally had his big breakout year. Well, not even big, but like relative breakout year. I don't think Seattle's going to give up on Manny Beniers.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm with you. It's just I'm just looking at like
I can't
other.
even
I'm
think of
just
guys. This is the problem with fans on Twitter being like, "Oh, the Sabres don't spend their money." Like, I want it to happen. It would be great, but on the same hand, I can't think of anywhere else they can spend the money. Like, I don't want Natchez. The
yeah.
one guy I'm Zegers pilled. That's about it. That's like the only guy where I'm like, that's the only publicly available player that I would be okay with.
Yeah, the other guy that it's not going to happen now because he just signed an extension, and it would have been literally in division and like a huge rival, so it probably wouldn't have worked. But I would have loved like a Shane Pinto. I think like
Yeah,
he's
that
like
would
a
have been
guy
fun.
that, yeah, that could have been like a good fit as well, and they just re-signed him
Yeah.
to a new deal, so not going to happen. But
If they went and got Pinto, he could have played second line center, and we could have moved Cousins to the wing. And
mhm, yep,
who's to say that the wing doesn't suit Cousins more with his straight line speed and an ability to score? So that would have been a nice move. I was definitely like into Pinto as well until he
yeah.
signed the extension.
Yeah, but that's Adam's job. Like that's why we're not GMs. It's like just make that move where it's like, holy shit, I didn't see this coming, but this is a nice sign in. Like this is exactly what we needed. Like, but who knew his name was out there? Like, hopefully he can
Nobody knew
go and
McLeod's name was
yeah,
out there until we traded for him.
exactly, yeah, and that stuff happens. So they have their talks, they have their conversations, and they're gonna do what they're gonna do. But yeah, other teams that I had above them: Colorado from the West, Colorado, Dallas, Edmonton. Those are no brainers. Nashville. Um, yeah, so just like I said, kind of in that middle tier. But
Yeah,
yeah,
and they were kind of, if we were to do the exercise last year as well, I would have put them in the same spot basically. But the bottom six was so bad that it like really caved in our season. So hopefully the bottom six additions, and the defense gets coached in a different way from Lindy, because they made almost no additions there besides Gilbert. And we'll see what happens. But I'm optimistic for this team to bounce back.
all right. I'm gonna throw one stat at you to end the show here.
Okay.
And I was doing a reading. I was reading an ESPN article, and I found this was kind of interesting. So, as far as goals above replacement from last season, just kind of like a stat they use to like evaluate
Yeah.
off seasons and whatnot. Where do you think the Sabres ranked? What do you think they ranked out of 32 teams from last year to this year, based on what they did this year, this offseason so far?
I think okay, so I saw Dmitry Filipovich specifically had the Sabres as having a top 10 offseason, but I don't think that's consensus. So I want to say, in terms of Gar, let's say I don't think they're all. I also don't think they're getting the respect they deserve, because I think the players that we had were also so bad. I'm gonna say 19.
They were actually ranked 13th.
Okay, 13th. That's better than I expected. So hey, that's pretty good.
13th in Gar. So the way this computed out was they had minus 1.5 goals offensively, a plus 4.5 goals defensively, and then a plus 2.6 at the goalie position. So it averaged out to like whatever, like five,
Yeah,
like a plus
plus
five
five in
Gar,
goals. Yeah.
which makes sense. We like a marginal improvement, but if they go and get that one guy, that's where you kind of bump up the offense. But it is interesting just to see that kind of minus 1.5 number, because everyone's kind of freaking out about the Skinner and where the goals are going to come from. Like, we have a lot of goal scorers, and I think they'll be okay there. I'm more kind of pissed off about maybe not using that cap space that you freed up, but as opposed to like the actual goals. But
I feel like in defensive guard, getting rid of Skinner and then adding like the guys we added is so. It's almost it's almost hard to quantify because Skinner's offense is very good, but on our roster, like for our roster makeup specifically, he wasn't playing on the top two lines. Like there was no way. I think he just
Yeah,
kind of fell out of favor. So in a roster building standpoint, it's hard to like really effectively measure that in like goals above replacement just because like we saw how terrible he was. I saw Skinner's defensive charts, the most red chart I've ever seen. And red is bad, good is blue is good. This guy's standard deviation for defensive play last year was literally off the chart. Like they had to add another standard deviation for his defensive play. It was so bad.
yeah,
So it's like, how do you even quantify that for someone that's like a complete anomaly to the rest of the league?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It is crazy. He was so bad. Yeah, and
I
not to
was,
mention if we get a full year of UPL playing like he did after January last year, I mean that could be huge. That could be huge. So,
yeah, and you can't measure like Thompson's not getting properly measured because he was injured last year. Like so was Tuck. So it's like difficult. You're kind of banking on injury, but then I think about it and I'm like, every team is kind of banking on injuries,
yeah,
like good injury luck.
yeah, every team's doing the same thing right now. Like, oh, like we didn't address this, we didn't address this. Like you can't have the perfect build. And so I think as a GM, it's like it's okay to bank on some things. Obviously, last year they needed to be more aggressive last year and they weren't. That was a mistake. But they did do some things last year. We talked about how it was the most aggressive, free agent signing that Adams has had in since he's been GM. He hasn't made this many moves, so he's brought some guys in. We'll see how it works out, but just kind of interesting to see that the general consensus out there is that yeah, they're a little bit better than last year right now. But let's see what's to come with this top six move and if he actually gets it done, that'll be big if he does. So all right, I think that'll
Dude,
wrap it up.
great show. Loved it. We'll be back next week, maybe the week after. Who knows? I,
Yeah, we'll
I
see.
really, I, I really need some content, man. I need some big trade. I'm really like, I'm feeling like we're in the dog days of summer, and I don't like that. Like, I miss hockey so much. I
Well,
miss it.
football starts tomorrow.
Football does start. Like, I'm gonna be held over by football, but I'm just so Sabres pilled. I need content. To end the show, did you see that they started doing little montage video for the video board?
Yes, I
They
just
took
saw that today.
they
Yeah,
took down the old one.
yeah,
I'm curious to see. That'll be your next piece of content next week when we talk. We'll lead off with the video board because I know they're gonna want to show that off and show the details. So I'm pretty excited about it.
yeah. Is the roof done? Do we know if the roof's done yet?
I don't know. I don't know. Hey
I'm
Terry,
more excited about that
Terry,
roof, dude.
Terry, you
That
got
thing looks
7 million. You're gonna have about 7 million more to spend. Like, how much did it cost you to replace the roof, and how much did it cost you to replace the video board? We can't just be having that. That can't just be the thing that we do. Like, come on.
we need to start like a petition. Like if we don't like get another guy or sign a top six forward, and we have all this cap space of like our list of demands of upgrades to the stadium for Terry Pagula.
All right, number one is probably fix the fucking concourse. Why is it that the aisle like signs? Why are they still using the old logo? Like that is the poorest thing I've ever seen in my life. Like
I didn't even notice that.
it's still the dark blue logo. Like, buddy, this is your team.
Oh my gosh.
Holy
Yeah.
fuck. Half the
Yeah.
goddamn outlets that use our logo still use the fucking old logo because we're so relevant that people don't even care to use the new logo.
Well, if it happens, then we'll put our list of demands out there. But for now, I'm staying positive about the new roof and the new video board. So we'll
Let's
see.
go.
We'll
Can't
see
wait
what
to see a
happens.
new video board while we're losing 7-0 to Columbus on October 17th.
No way, dude. We got the Kings at home, game one. Lindy's gonna be there. I'm definitely getting tickets. I am not missing that game. It's gonna be awesome.
I won't be able to get tickets, but it'll be cool. I'm excited.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, that'll do it for this week. And if you're listening, then appreciate you guys for following the show and follow us on Twitter at X at Sabres Spotlight. If you have any feedback, like always, or you want to submit a question for us to answer, if you know us, text us. If not, email us. That'll be in the show notes below. But we will be, talking with people on Twitter in between shows and whatnot. And so come follow us there and have some fun. And we'll see everybody next week. As always, stay safe in the Sabrehood.
See ya.